Welcome to Psych Talk. I'm your host, Dr. Jessica Rabin, a licensed clinical psychologist. If you are a mental health professional, student in the social science field, or just interested in psychology and mental health, this podcast is for you. Although topics discussed on this podcast are similar to therapy, Psych Talk is not a replacement for therapy and is for educational and entertainment purposes only. So let's dive into today's episode. Hey everyone, welcome back to Psych Talk, and thank you so much for joining me for today's episode. Today I have a very special guest with me, Tiffany McCary, who is a licensed social worker. So Tiffany, thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So as I was saying before we hit record, I'm super excited to chat with you today about the topic we're going to talk about because it's something I haven't covered on the podcast. But before we
Mhm.
jump into our discussion, can you introduce yourself, a little bit about your background, what you do, and anything else you want to share?
Yeah, so I'm a licensed social worker currently. I work in private practice. I see ages 3 and up, so I call myself like a lifespan therapist. But in the practice I work at, I see all of the children mostly, especially 10 and under. Um, Fun fact is I'm also a nanny, so I
Okay.
have three beautiful kids that I help take to school and pick up and watch them on the weekends and at night and stuff like that. So that's like a fun fact that people don't always know about me.
I appreciate that. Well, you work across the lifespan, but you work with kids in your
Mhm.
clinical job. You work with kids as a nanny. So I'm assuming you like children. So you spend so,
I love children.
yeah, that's awesome. So one of the things you do, speaking of children, is play therapy, which
Hmm.
is what we're going to be talking about today. So can you tell us a little bit about your journey to specializing in play therapy? Because I feel like, there is a niche of therapists that do play therapy, but most people go through their training and are never taught play therapy. So can you share with us how you kind of got to where you are now with regard to play therapy?
Yeah, so just like everyone in social work like degree, we had like one-on-one therapy classes and we had like group therapy classes. We never like know how to work with kids. And I hopped into community mental health right after I graduated and I like took the kid job. So I was like with all these kids and I kind of felt like I wasn't helping. While I was like a safe space, I really couldn't do like talk therapy with a 4-year-old.
Hmm.
Um, so I was like, I'm gonna learn play therapy. And I took my first play therapy training and I was like, okay, this is a whole different like ball game.
Hmm.
And I wanted to in community mental health, it's hard because you don't have like a playroom. You only have your office. You kind of have to learn how to work in the space you have. So, I ended up getting licensed and I left community mental health and I came to private practice and I full force jumped into it. I looked for a supervisor who was not only a LSW, but she was also an RPTS and I can get the RPT the same time I got the LSTSW. Um, so that's how I kind of really jumped into it. I was like, I'm going full force into this and I'm going to take every training I think is interesting about play therapy and I'm just going to really get into it.
I love that so much because, like you said, and you're talking from a social work lens, but I feel like it's similar across degrees. I'm a psychologist. Like, you don't get training, definitely in play therapy, but I agree with you, unless you're in a program that is specifically child focused or has a child track, most people don't get taught how to work with children. I know
Mhm.
for me personally, one of my supervisors in grad school was trained in PCIT, so parent-child interaction therapy.
Hmm.
So I got trained in that, but that was solely because my supervisor was a PCIT specialist. And yeah, play therapy. I had one supervisor that was trained in play therapy, but I don't even know how much he actually like taught other people. So it makes sense that you had to dive into trainings post grad school.
Yeah, and I actually was trained in PCIT at the community mental health I worked at. But I didn't feel like that like worked with how I like kind of felt. Like I kind
Hmm.
of felt like the child really needs to have control and it needs to be child led, and PCIT doesn't, it's more of like parent led.
Hmm.
Um, so I was like, I want to do like more, and I just like kept getting more training, more training. I was like, all right, I'm doing this. Like I'm doing the hours. I'm becoming an RPT, and that's something that I'm hopefully going to be done by the end of the year. So I'm excited for that.
Nice. So, for people who don't know what we're talking about,
Mhm.
can you define for listeners what play therapy actually is, and maybe even like what ages or developmental levels it's best suited for? Because you made the comment earlier, like you can't do talk therapy with a 4-year-old. So, yeah, any information you want to provide about what play therapy is.
So when I talk to parents about play therapy, right, a lot of them are coming to my office for the first time because they want play therapy. And what I say is it's not a normal session where we're just talking. The
Mhm.
child is using, we're in a playroom and the child is using the toys as a way to express kind of what's going on inside or to kind of take it away from them and put it on the toys.
Hmm.
Um, so it's more intentional, like the toys and the setup in the room are more intentional, right? It's not like a normal playroom at home. Everything that we have in the room is like some sort of aggression toy, or they have some sort of reason why they're in there.
Hmm.
Um, a lot of the time, children are working through emotions, expressions, challenges, instead of talking because working with kids, they don't really like to talk about their feelings. They don't want
Hmm.
to talk to some stranger about their feelings. So instead, I usually say like the toys are the children's words and play is their language, and they have to kind of get it out. Um, so it's more intentional than people think play therapy really is. So that's kind of like my spiel to parents of like they're using the toys to express big feelings, and
Hmm.
it becomes their language and telling me what's going on or how they're feeling.
Hmm. I love that you said like play is their language because I mean, developmentally,
Hmm.
especially younger children, that is how they express themselves. It's through play, whether it's, playing with actual toys, imaginary play, parallel play with peers. Like that is how children communicate and learn and interact with the world. So it would make sense logically that there is also a therapeutic intervention that uses the
Hmm.
language that the children speak.
Yeah, and it's so cool because some of my adults will even come in the playroom to use the sand tray, and they'll really get into like the figurines I have in the sand tray, and it brings back that time when they could just be a kid. And I think
Mhm.
like play has a space in every therapeutic way. It's just if the client who's older is accepting to it.
Hmm. Hmm. So, since you just mentioned if the client's older, so what ages generally do you see for play therapy? Are there certain like developmental levels that need to, I don't know, be there
Um,
to engage well?
so usually like play can be anywhere from like 3 or 4 to 18. Obviously,
Okay.
like around 12, 13, they don't want to play with toys anymore, right? So play is not just with toys, right? So we use different interventions like expressive arts,
Hmm.
or we incorporate sand tray in the play, or maybe we're building Legos. We are incorporating some type of play because it's child led.
Hmm.
But usually 10 and under is where like I get the bulk of my who want to be in the playroom, who want to play with the toys, who don't want to talk about something big that just happened.
Hmm.
And there is actually play therapy, which is a neurodivergent type of play therapy by Dr.
Okay.
Robert Grant. And so if you have autism, if you're gifted, if you're struggling with ADHD, like this type of play therapy is for your kid. So no kid is left out from being able to play. Even if they don't have the verbal strength to tell me what's going on, I can start to kind of figure it out.
Hmm. I love that. And also, I internally had to laugh because as somebody that primarily works with teenagers, I was like, yeah, a lot of teenagers don't want to play. But sometimes you get those teenagers, like once you get enough rapport and like you introduce things, they're like, oh, yeah, I would love to do that. Or like, I used to love this as a child. Sure, I'll
Mhm.
play with this toy while we're talking or build Legos while we're talking.
Yes. So you can see there's a basketball hoop in my
Yeah.
office because a lot of my 10 or older clients love to shoot hoops but don't want to be in the playroom. So
Okay.
it's portable, so I just bring it out. They can shoot hoops in the office. Um and they it gets them to talk, it gets them to express themselves. It gets them to like create that rapport with me that we may not have had if I had not brought in this play intervention.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So, what would you say are some common misconceptions about play therapy? Because you kind of alluded to some earlier while you're just like, it's not just like a normal playroom, everything has a purpose. So, what are some misconceptions that you've heard or run into maybe when talking to parents about play therapy?
I can like beat a dead horse about this because
Okay.
there's so many misconceptions that play is just like, well, they're just playing, they're not getting any better, or um they're not just playing. To an outside person who's not trained in it, it could just look like they're playing with the dollies and the dollies are just having a good time. But if
Hmm.
that client has some sort of trauma or has anger, you can hear their tone in the voice get louder. You can hear them pick certain types of emotions. Like sometimes clients will pick all the emotions and stuff them in one room.
Hmm.
Um, Stuff along that line. So like I'm observing like what's going on and the themes that they're doing or emotions they're having, or is this one doll attached to this other doll? And they can't
Hmm.
separate. So it kind of shows a lot of different things, but I will say that the one thing that is you have to be trained in
Hmm.
play therapy. You can't just do play therapy to say you do play therapy. You have to have some kind of background in it,
Hmm.
and some kind of training. Like you don't have to be an RPT, but you have to have some kind of training in it. The other thing that drives me crazy is when people are like, I'm using worksheets, like I'm doing play therapy, and like no worksheets come into the playroom. The only pieces of paper that we have in the playroom is to draw, to make art, to paint.
Hmm.
Um, because play is so much deeper than like a worksheet or a game, right?
Yeah.
We and as a therapist, we kind of have to be attuned. So like um I kind of have to know what's going on or what they're feeling in a sense of like I'm feeling it. Okay.
Hmm.
I always say like I'm getting kind of anxious, like I'm getting kind of angry, like I don't know what's going on inside of my head, or I'm zoning out or something along those lines.
Hmm. Yeah. Oh, going back to your first misconception of like they're just playing, they're not getting better. I hear that so often, like especially as somebody that works primarily with teens, when I'm like doing intake and I'll ask the teen or the parents, like, have you ever been in therapy before? And the amount of times I've heard like, oh, when they were little, but they just played. It wasn't real therapy, or like, they didn't actually do therapy, they just played. And I'm like, no, I wasn't there. I don't know their lived experience. And I'm assuming if they actually saw a play therapist, they were doing therapy. The kid just probably didn't think it was therapy because they were going back to what you said, you know, communicating in their language of play.
Hmm. And I also think too for play therapy, like a misconception is the parents are going to be involved.
Hmm.
Um, and I always will have parent sessions. I will do check-ins like every 4 to 5 sessions. I'll do a parent session. We sit, we talk about what's working, what's not working, what are some of the things that I'm teaching them? How do they teach that at home?
Hmm.
How do they react to things? So the parents are very involved, and even if they want to come into a session during a play therapy session, like they're totally welcome. So
Hmm.
I keep them very involved, and I think that's a misconception that parents sh like just sit in the waiting room and don't do anything. But like, no, you're gonna come in, and we're gonna have a parent chat because I want to know what you're doing at home too.
Hmm. Yeah. No, thank you for highlighting that as well, because I think a lot of times when it comes to working with kids, if they have safe parents or guardians in their lives, they need to be involved in the therapeutic process. Yeah, they don't need to be sitting in every single session necessarily. They can if that is what works for the clinician and the dynamic. Um, but therapy is what, 45 minutes to an hour a week, maybe more if depending on the type of therapy you're doing. So these kids are going home to their families. And if their families are not reinforcing the things they're learning in therapy, it's going to
Hmm.
slow or halt the progress that therapy is, helping them make.
Yeah, and I give sometimes I'll do like I'll do like workbooks with the parents. Like we'll focus on the whole brain child workbook and kind of
Hmm.
understanding what's going on with their brain. And other times I'll give them like steps to do at home or things to help them regulate when they're
Hmm.
at home, because that's what I'm really focused on. How is the parent regulating? Because then that tells me how the child's going to regulate.
Hmm. That is a really, really good point, as well. And going back to the worksheets, I have to laugh because I've had so many patients over the years, like was in therapy before, just don't give me worksheets. I've had other patients that love worksheets. Give me all the worksheets all day. And so, neither is right or wrong, good or bad, but to your point, like giving a kid a worksheet does not equate to play therapy. It equates to giving them a therapeutic worksheet.
Yeah, and all could be great if the client
Hmm.
is like 10, 11, 12, right? Because I think kids
Hmm.
sometimes need that. But as I mainly see like 6, 7, 8, 9 year olds,
Hmm.
and they don't want to sit and just they want to explore, they want to touch, they want to battle with foam swords. They want to sometimes I have kids just come in for the first couple sessions and destroy the playroom. Right? They're testing, they're seeing where I'm
Hmm.
coming from, if they're able to do things. So I think it's a lot more than just like a worksheet. Yeah, worksheets are beneficial to certain people and certain other people, but for play, I think you really have to get down and dirty in the play with the kids.
Hmm. Oh, absolutely. So, what are some presenting problems play therapy can address? And I know this is probably a big question, so take this wherever you want.
I think play can help with anything that's going on. Which is very like hard to be like, oh, well, this could this help, blah, blah, blah. But I think what I see in my practice a lot is ADHD struggles,
Hmm.
anxiety, trauma, grief, also divorce,
Okay.
transition. Anger is a big one that I've been seeing a lot of. So really it just depends on what's going on with the kid and how can we attune play to what they need.
Hmm. I love that so much because I would imagine that since the therapeutic intervention is using the language they speak, using toys, using play, and really with play, like there are unlimited options of what you can do, which means there are unlimited options of what the child is coming in the room with and what
Mhm.
they are going to express through their play.
Yeah, all the time. So I love to look at other people's playrooms
Okay.
online or my supervisor, like, or even at conferences, like see all the cool things they have and kind of see like, oh, what don't I have and how can I use that in play?
Hmm.
I've been really big on movement in the playroom, so I have scarves that we throw up in the air. Or, I move the basketball hoop back into the playroom. Sometimes I have a bop bag. Sometimes I have like a bullseye and they love to like throw the balls at it. Um, so it's unlimited the options that they could do and how they use things is totally different than you think they would use them.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, and I was reflecting when you said something you've seen recently a lot is anger, and reflecting on something else you said about like the first few sessions, kind of just letting them destroy the playroom, test your reactions. I would imagine for something like anger, where maybe they can't express anger at home by trashing their house, you're providing a safe space for them to have an outlet of this emotion that they are feeling, want to express, but maybe the ways they want to express they can't do necessarily at home.
I think too, because maybe when parents see anger, it's like, how can I stop this? This is too much for me. I can't
Mhm.
handle it, right? And in my playroom, it's kind of like, okay, there's a limit. Maybe we'll get to a limit. I'll have to set a limit with the client. But for the most part, they want to foam sword battle me. Okay, we're gonna foam sword battle until they're done.
Yeah.
And I've had clients do it for 20 minutes. I've had clients do it for an hour. It just really depends on where they're kind of at.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Also, I know like sometimes it's very controversial is like I have play guns and handcuffs. Um, and they really loved like arrest me. Like that's their favorite thing is like I'm gonna arrest you and they're like they put them on really tight and they put me in jail and I can't move and so stuff like that. Like no adult in a sense gets on their level. You know, when you're busy at
Mm-hmm.
home with kids, it's really hard to just get on their level and play.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And another thing that you said as for presenting problems that I thought was interesting is divorce, because I'm imagining younger kids,
Hmm.
especially a lot of parents going back to misconceptions, you know, maybe like, oh, they're so young, they're not going to remember this or things like that. And I used to work with little kids. It's been a while. I don't want to say very limited experience, but I don't work
Hmm.
with little kids anymore. But I learned from working with like 3, 4, 5 year olds that even if they don't have the verbal language, they know what's going on and they know a lot more than we think. And so I would imagine having play therapy for a young child in particular whose parents are going through divorce, or you said life transitions, like maybe a death of a grandparent or pet or things like that, having that outlet to be able to express their emotions without having the language, because I'm assuming most like 4 or 5 year olds don't know what the word divorce means, but they understand that their two parents are no longer in the same home. Or like a 4 year old might not have a concept of death, but they recognize Granny is no longer here anymore.
Yeah, so I think transitions, life transition, divorces, right? I think parents think they're just going to come in and they're going to tell me all about it and they're going to tell me what it's like at transition time or they're going to tell me what it's like when they go to mom and dad's house, right? And honestly, I've seen with kids who struggle with divorce or transitions, it's taking me like 6 months to get them to even speak about what's going on.
Wow.
So they have to be very comfortable and trustworthy to show me. They might hint at it. Oh, I
Hmm.
did this with daddy or I did this with mom, right? But they're gonna see how I'm gonna react, right? And if they're in households where their other parent is being talked about, right? They're gonna show that in different ways. They're not just gonna come out and say what's going on. But
Hmm.
I think a lot of parents in divorce and transitions think that their child just gonna come in and tell me what's going on and play. And sometimes it takes them 6, 7 months to be able to be like, oh, daddy's finally coming home. Like, kind of playing it
Hmm.
out with like some type of characters. And I think that's kind of a hard thing for parents to kind of understand.
Yeah. I'm so glad you just said that last part because I was going to ask that kind of clarifying. So when you say like before they verbally express it. So what I'm understanding is like if you have dolls in the room, they're not going to come in and be like, "Mommy and Daddy used to live together. Now they don't. And this is me and I'm sad." It's going to come out in other
Hmm.
ways. Okay.
They may have like a battle and it may be battling over and over again. And then finally the dad comes back, or they pick two separate houses and they're far away in the sand. And they're not just like plain out saying like one's mommy's house, one daddy's house. They're showing me, okay, these are two
Hmm.
separate houses. And I think sometimes parents get a little confused on what's actually going on. So I like to kind of say, like, oh, this is like the theme I'm seeing. I'm seeing a lot of anger, a lot of
Hmm.
control, stuff like that. And the parents start to go, oh, I'm seeing that at home, like in the transition or stuff like that.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. And it sounds like you can kind of help guide the parents or make them recognize the patterns or behaviors or themes that are actually going on at the house, but maybe they didn't pick up on them just because they're going through their own stuff
Hmm.
as well. Like I'm thinking in the context of divorce, obviously, if the parents are going through the divorce, they have their own stress. So until you point out, like, oh, I'm noticing these anger themes and I'm noticing X, Y, and Z, then parents can reflect and be like, oh, yes, my child's also doing that at home.
Hmm. Yeah. And sometimes the parents will be like, wow, I'm definitely seeing that at home. I've been seeing that at home for a while. Or do you see that he or she acts this way because of when you do this? And they're like, oh, wait, I do. Or
Hmm.
they'll even come back and be like, oh, I used the technique that you told me about and it worked. Or I got down on their level and I actually played with them and that kind of helped. So it's not only play therapy is not only like success of the child. I really want it to be a family success.
Hmm.
Um, so that's kind of how I see like any work in play therapy is like a family work type of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And another thing you've said a couple times in our discussion is getting down on the child's level. And I think that is so important to highlight because, as we've mentioned a couple times, play is the language children use, it's how they communicate. As adults, unfortunately, we forget how to play a lot. And so, and I mean, I even catch myself doing this with two young kids at home. Like they're playing, and I'm just kind of like sitting, watching, or maybe I'm scrolling on my phone as much as I don't want to admit it, or I'm like trying to
Yeah.
do other things while they're playing, or if they're playing, like, you know, I definitely play with my kids, but like not to the same extent I definitely played as a child. And I think you as an adult or any other play therapist actually like fully immersing yourself in the play with them is going to help build that rapport and trust and safety faster.
Yeah, I think like I'm laying on the ground with them. I'm rolling around and doing whatever we're doing, or for one thing is like the sand tray. My sand tray
Mhm.
is portable, so it goes on a stand or it goes on the ground. And when I put it on the ground and they get sand over the sand over the side, the first thing they do is look at me and I'm like, oh, it's all right. We all do it.
Yeah.
Right? Or I give that kind of reassurance and I'm like, that's okay in here. I have a
Hmm.
vacuum. It's okay. Um, I'm coloring with them, or sometimes we're writing stories together, or sometimes we're literally screaming with each other, right? Like, I didn't make a loud scream. You need to do it too. So my knees definitely take a beating. My legs definitely take a beating, but it's worth it to be on the
Hmm.
same level with them.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've mentioned the sand tray a couple times. So I'd love to hear more about that as well as any other like techniques or strategies that you use in play therapy that you think would be interesting for listeners to learn about.
So I use sand and play. So I am trained in some type of sand tray, but I'm not like fully like in
Hmm.
credentialing or anything like that. But I use sand and play. So we're gonna make stories, right? I have like action figures and I have movie figures and I have animals and I have jails and I kind of let them do what they need to do. Some kids will make a story out of it. Some kids will
Hmm.
share the sand with me. Hey, you make a city, I make a city.
Okay.
And then I have some other kids that just need to regulate in it. So I've had kids literally say, "Can I get into it?" And I'm like, "Go ahead. We'll just clean you off when you're done." So they'll sit in the sand, they'll stand in the sand, they'll pour sand on their legs in the sand. Um, I give them full autonomy to do what they need to do, and sometimes kids just want to play in the sand.
Hmm.
So the sand tray is very beneficial in my playroom. It does get a little messy, but
But you have a
for the most
vacuum.
part, I have a vacuum. You're right. The cleaner who comes to clean our offices really does probably not like my playroom because she has to always clean up the sand. But I let them have autonomy in doing what they need to do in the sand. So the sand is a big thing. What I've seen kids like to do too is my kitchen and my stand are right across from, so they like to put all the sand in like the pots and the pans and pretend they're making stews and foods, or bring all of the dishes to the sand tray and just play with the sand tray and the sand stuff. Um, some other things that I found to be um really great is puppets.
Ooh, okay.
So I have like a bunch of puppets and some of them are pizzas, some of them are sad pizzas, some of them are happy cookies, like some of them are just regular angry, or I have two little clams I just got and like
Okay.
sometimes I'll just pretend to be the puppet the whole and like I have clients will be like, "Stop doing that. No, put the puppet like," and they'll tell me to put it away and I'm like, "Okay."
Hmm.
Um Also, I'm starting to get into Legos with
Okay.
the kids, and some of these kids are just amazing with what they can do with Legos. I never had the
Mhm.
imagination to create a four-story building with Legos.
Yeah.
Uh, so what I've seen is I try to get in their interests, what they like. So
Okay.
if they like I have a little board that has it's chalkboard. They love
Okay.
just drawing on it. They love
Hmm.
just drawing on it. We do bubbles inside. That's a big one. Um, so it just really depends what the kid's into. I let them have full autonomy in the playroom. They can do whatever they need to do.
Hmm. I love that so much because going back to one of the first things you said of like the playroom is not a typical playroom. Everything has a purpose. And all the things you, other than like a sand tray, I would argue probably not everybody has a sand tray at home.
Mhm. Yeah,
But
no.
like things like bubbles or Legos or puppets, these are items, play items that children are already familiar with. So they're naturally going to be drawn to things that they enjoy, and how they use those things is going to communicate to you what they're thinking, feeling, etc.
It's so cool to see because not every kid is the same.
Hmm.
So sometimes we're in the sand trail session. Sometimes they're shutting the light off and trying to find me with the foam sword. Like, it just really depends on what they need to do in that session. But it's exciting. I think play therapy is really exciting because it's never the same. It's
Hmm.
never like the repeat, we sit down, we talk type of thing. It's more of like, okay, what do you want to do? Or I
Hmm.
don't even, sometimes they just go right into the playroom and they're starting to pull things out and I'm like, okay, I'm ready. I'm gonna sit. Let's play
Yeah.
type of things.
I would even imagine if the child picks the same toy, like week to week, it's not going to be the same play story or actions or whatever. Like you've mentioned the foam swords a bunch. Like, yeah, it might be a sword fight, but like one day it's in the dark. One day it's like, okay, you're gonna be the bad guy and I'm gonna be the good guy. One day it might be like, we're both good guys and we're gonna go slay the dragon. I don't know. I'm just making stuff up here. But I would
Yeah.
imagine like, I don't know. I could be wrong about that, but I would imagine that like it's not common for week after week the play to be exactly the same.
Unless, and this is the one thing that I've started to see, unless the child is working through something, it's never going to be the same.
Okay.
So sometimes clients, when kids are working through stuff, it's the same. It's the same. It's repetitive. Like, say if it's a battle, we're battling every week. We're battling every week, and then it's like they finally break through it, and then they're
Hmm.
done with that. They've progressed through
Okay.
whatever they progressed through, and they're on to something else. Um, but you are right. Like sometimes like the food in the kitchen, right? Like it's in the sand one week and then the other week it maybe they're cooking me a stew or maybe we're playing store or
Hmm.
maybe they're making ice cream or even the register like one kid could come in and we can play store with the register. The other one can come in and we can rob the register. So it's all different. And
Yeah.
it sounds like there's like chaos and no control, but really it's all child led. So it's whatever the child needs to do or wants to do.
Yeah. Well, and we haven't really touched on this point, but or other than when comparing to PCIT, but I think a lot of times in their day-to-day life, children don't get to lead,
Hmm.
especially, if they're in a school setting or maybe a home environment where it's very structured or both parents are working. So like the family time together is limited. And so like parents kind of rein in the control. So I'm sure in many ways it's also very freeing for the child to just kind of get to do what they want and having an adult in the room follow their lead.
Yeah, and I think I always say the first play session therapy, like when they're actually just me and the child in the play therapy room, the first one is my favorite because they're kind of like, am I allowed to do this? Is she gonna allow me to do that?
Hmm.
And it's kind of like, what is this lady gonna let me do? And when
Hmm.
they see they can, you know, dump every toy out, they're like, oh, this is like kind of crazy but fun.
Yeah.
And then I think that's when when the trust starts to form with kids is when the work really starts.
Hmm. Oh, absolutely. So you said something a few minutes ago about how play therapy is not just for the kid, it's for the whole family. So can you talk about like some of the beneficial outcomes that play therapy can provide, both for like the child, but then the family unit as a whole?
So when I look at family units, I see like how are if it's mom and dad, whatever type of household it is, how are they regulating when the child's upset? Are we connecting? Are we then redirecting? What exactly are we doing? I really want to know what how the parents were raised and how they kind of project that in their families. And then kind of some of the outcomes I see is like maybe mom and dad have a their frustration tolerance is a lot better with the
Hmm.
child. Maybe tantrums that out in the public are not so embarrassing anymore, or they don't feel so embarrassed. And honestly, sometimes the parent just needs to be heard because they
Hmm.
don't have anyone else to understand or hear them. And from those outcomes, I've seen children be able to regulate a lot better. They want more time with their parents. They trust a little bit more. They're talking more. Maybe the control at home is it's maybe it's not a battle every single day. Maybe it's maybe
Hmm.
only a battle once a week or twice a week. So the family unit is benefiting in that way.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And you've mentioned emotion regulation a couple times, both on the parents' side and the child side. And I think, you know, at the core of so many things in life, if we can regulate our emotions well, at least for the most part, because I
Mhm.
always say, even as adults, there's going to be times we get emotionally dysregulated. That has such a ripple effect on so many things. Like if we can regulate our emotions in times of stress, in moments of panic, in moments of conflict, that's going to help communicate better. It's going to, especially I'm thinking parent-child dynamics, like repair any relationship that needs repair much quicker. I love that you highlighted like more quality time together. Like the child wants to spend more time with their parent because I think that is something that maybe not a lot of people would think of. They're like, oh, okay, the kid is no longer throwing tantrums or can regulate their emotions, but that relationship aspect
Mhm.
is so important as well.
Yeah, and my goal, I always say 10 to 15 minutes. And it doesn't have to be every day. And I stress that to parents. Like, it doesn't have to be every day. Maybe you're in the car together and maybe you're going to soccer. Okay, don't ask about their day, but like, let's talk about something funny. Or,
Hmm.
some days I'm in the car with the kids and Annie and I'm like, I need to scream. Do you guys need to scream too? And they're like, yeah. And we scream together. And I think giving parents that feel of like, okay, not everything needs to be regimented all the time. We can talk about the biggest dinosaur on the planet or and it's just giving that kids that 10 to 15 minutes to know that you're there
Hmm.
and you want and even if it's just like you're playing or chasing them around the house, it's giving them that contact of like, okay, this person wants to be with me. I'm securing this attachment with my mom and dad.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, and I would imagine for parents whose children are in play therapy, they're obviously in play therapy for a reason, whether it's emotion
Mhm.
dysregulation, it's a stress, a trauma, things like that. Parents, whether intentionally or unintentionally, are probably feeling a disconnect from their child because their child's behavior is probably worse because that's how children express difficult emotions. Parents get frustrated, and that dynamic is ruptured. So if the child is learning these skills, parents are learning these skills, child is more regulated, parents more regulated, child wants to spend more time with parent, parent is going to want to spend more time with child as well. And so it's not just like a one-way dynamic. I don't think that
Mhm.
that even made sense. But like it's not just like one party wanting to spend more
Mhm.
time. It's both because of all of those factors.
Yeah, and I've had clients and parents, like I've had even parents in session, right? And I think the parents hearing their kid, even if they're 7, 8, right, and we're just having a normal session, not in the playroom, and they're like, sometimes the parents are like, I've never heard you say this, or this is the
Hmm.
first for me. And I think we're building those stepping stones to be able to like put the walls down and be like, I can talk to my parents about this, or I can trust them to listen to me. And I think that's the big thing too, is parents struggle with is listening.
Hmm.
So that's the one thing I try to help like those 8, 9, 10, 11-year-olds who are really struggling and battling with their parents.
Hmm. Yeah. So, speaking of parents, if a parent's listening right now and they have a child that they think play therapy may be a good fit for. Where can they start? Like, how can they find a play therapist? And then, do you have any advice or words of encouragement for those parents?
Yeah, so one way you can always look for a registered play therapist is on the APT website. You could look in your state, in your area, and they'll kind of come up with who's registered, who has met the criteria to be a registered play therapist, right? You can also go on Psychology Today in your state looking for that. Also reaching out to places who work with children. Do you do play therapy?
Hmm.
And then maybe having a consultation with that play therapist or having the intake and really asking questions of like, well, what does play therapy look like? Are there parent sessions? Are you not only going to help my child, but help me?
Hmm.
How are you going to incorporate all of us? And also, like, I think parents really would just want to know what you're going to do in the playroom with their kid.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes I'm like, listen, we're going to go in there and we're going to play, and you're going to hear us, and we might be loud sometimes, but we're working. And when things get rough or maybe hectic, I can handle it. I'm okay. But just
Hmm.
know that like we're doing some work and we'll share it when we're ready. But I think the big thing is parents need to be the advocate for themselves and for their kids. So if
Hmm.
you feel like you go to a play therapist and you're not getting the care you want, or maybe they're not having parent sessions, ask for them.
Hmm.
Talk to the therapist. Because in all reality, like you are the one paying for the therapist. So
Yeah.
make sure they have what you want them to have or
Yeah.
need.
Yeah. I love all that advice because I think a lot of times, whether it's play therapy or other types of therapy, you know, m most good parents want to advocate for their kids, but they don't always know how to
Hmm.
or what questions to ask. So I love that you just gave some guidance on things to ask the play therapist. Like, what does it look like for you? Are parents involved? Frequency of parent involvement, how can you help me as well? Because, you know, many people don't know what to ask. They're like, oh, play therapy. I was told this is good because my kid's 4. Cool. And
Yeah.
that's it.
And also, like, don't be afraid to ask, like, what is your training in? How
Hmm.
much training do you have? Are you getting your RPT or are you just not? Like, you can ask a therapist that question. It's
Yeah.
just like an adult when you come in, hey, are you qualified to do EMDR? No, I'm not, but I can give
Hmm.
you referrals to what you need. And I think with play therapy, like if you feel like they're just doing worksheets or they're just color, like if you don't feel like it's what you think play therapy should be, ask them.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, Tiffany, I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. I've learned a
Yeah, me too.
lot from you. I don't know much about play therapy, so this was really fun to hear and just learn about how you work and how play therapy helps kids and the family. But before we wrap up, is there anything I haven't asked you about that you would like to touch on or make sure that we cover in our discussion or you want the listeners to know about play therapy?
I think play therapy gets a bad rap sometimes because people don't understand it.
Mm-hmm.
And I will share that. I once had a client kind of tell me that their parent kind of told me like my child has come and said like they know they're learning, but they're playing, but they know they're learning. Um, so what I've taken from that is like kind of like kids know we're doing some work on some
Mm-hmm.
hard stuff, but they're more comfortable because we're doing it in their way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think my last tips for parents are just play with your kids. Get on the
Yeah.
floor. Put the phone down. Sometimes it's hard for me too, but like put the phone down and pretend to be the Barbie or pretend to be the Doc McStuffins or whatever you need to be. Um, just really like be a kid. It really does help you regulate too. It is fun after all.
Mm-hmm. We love some Doc McStuffins in our household. So I love
Yeah.
that you just said that. Yeah, absolutely. Well, Tiffany, thank you so much once again for coming on and sharing your insights and knowledge. The last questions I ask all my guests is where can people connect with you?
So I have a play therapy Instagram. It's called at Play with Tiffany. I post funny videos. I post some parent reminders, some parent tips, co-regulation stuff. Also, like I'm a social worker, so one of our big things is advocate, and I'm always going to advocate for a kid and how the system treats them. So that's kind of what I'm doing. So you could hop over and follow me. I'm on TikTok too, the same thing, and kind of just join in the crazy fun.
I love that. I love that so much. And I will put links to your social accounts in the show notes of this episode. So, Tiffany, once again, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for taking time out of your schedule to be here with me and sharing all your knowledge with me and the listeners. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.
And thank you, the listeners, for joining for today's episode of Psych Talk. And I will catch you in the next episode. Bye. Thank you for listening to today's episode of Psych Talk. Please rate, review, and subscribe to the show. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with a friend. Don't forget to follow me on all socials at Jessica Lee, PhD, and the podcast at Psych Talk Podcast on Instagram.